Hello, I'm Faye.
And I'm Becky. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about maximising your potential as a leader and living your best life personally and professionally.
So join us on the M53 for our weekly chats, full of insights and inspiration, and of course, a cuppa and a butty.
Faye, it's called a brew. Hello, and thank you for joining us again for this episode of Meet Me on the M53. Today, we are talking about self-awareness. Self-awareness. This is one of Faye and I's actually favourite subjects as coaches, as people who are big into personal development. Self-awareness really is at the heart of that. For me, it's the foundation of any kind of personal change and growth. And we find it a really fascinating subject because not everybody shares our passion for it. Self-awareness can be an uncomfortable place to start exploring. It really can. And we'll come into that and the whys of that a little bit later on. But first, Faye, what's the background of self-awareness? What is self-awareness actually all about?
Yeah, so self-awareness is the ability to see ourselves clearly and objectively through reflection and introspection. So I can't remember what podcast episode it was, but it was one of the early ones where we talk about how we reflect on what's going on for us. And that is self-awareness in essence. But there is a theory of self-awareness. Duval and Wicklund, 1972, came up with the theory based on the idea that you're not your thoughts, you are the thinker, you are separate from your thoughts. I'm just going to say that again because it's quite deep, isn't it?
It is a bit deep, that.
You're not your thoughts, you are the thinker, and that is separate from your thoughts. So what does it actually mean? We have thoughts that go through our head all the time throughout the day. We can't turn it off because that's how we work. But actually, when we choose what we're thinking about, we are the thinker. We don't normally choose we don't have to choose all of our thoughts, right? So as we're going through the day, we'll have all this going on. It's like traffic in our head coming in. I forget how many thousands and millions of thoughts we have going through our head every day. But when we choose to focus on our inner self, that is self-evaluation. And when we reflect on what we're focusing on, we're giving thoughts to our thinking, our feeling, and our acting. And we're looking at whether we're thinking, feeling, acting as we should, or as we think we should, or whether we're thinking, feeling, and acting in line with our values that we actually talked about on the last episode of the podcast. So if you've missed that, do go back and have a listen. So self-awareness is looking at who we are, what we're doing. Are we acting in line with who we think we are? And it can help with our self-control. It can help with our motivation and taking us to those places where we want to be. And it can really help with our boundaries and putting in place firm boundaries, what we want in our life, what we'll allow in, and what we don't. But the thing that's so interesting to me, and I could talk about this all day, and I think with Becky I absolutely could talk about this all day.
She has talked about it all day.
Is that self-awareness is finding out who we are, who we really are. Now, I know, Becky, I know you're gonna want to talk about the layers. I'm going to hand over to you because I love the way that you visualize how we become self-aware.
Yeah, I do tend to think about things in quite visual ways, because self-awareness is actually and real self-awareness. This is what we're talking about here today. Real, true self-awareness is something that is really relatively new to me. I would say probably only over the last 18 months have I really paid attention to developing my self-awareness. Now, before that, I thought I was really self-aware, because I thought that I'd decided all these things about the way that I was, what I was capable of, and who I was as a person. And I had a bit of a light bulb moment this year. Well, that's a lie. At the end of last year, when it came to thinking about New Year's resolutions, because I'm normally a person that really gets on board with that whole new year, new me. I'm going to make all these changes because I need to make all these changes because who I am right now is not good enough. And that is a story that I have told myself for years and years and years and years in very many different ways. And this year, as we were getting closer and closer to New Year's Day, I started to feel that stress around, oh, what am I going to do this year? What am I going to set? And I thought, hang on a minute, hang on. Over the last 18 months, I've actually really got to know myself. And actually, I'm not all those things that I have been telling myself for years. And my self-awareness is real now and it's true. And actually, the conclusion that I came to was, I'm all right. I'm all right. I don't need to be thinking all these negative things about myself that therefore I'm going to change in the new year and I'm going to make better, because now my self-awareness shows me who I really am. And I liken it to looking in a mirror. And people often have a real resistance to doing any real, and I'm using that word again, real self-awareness work, because it is like holding up a mirror. And sometimes that reflection can be really ugly. And we're not ready for that because we're not ready to see who we really are on the inside. And we're not then ready to do the work that we need to do to change it to be the reflection that we want it to be. Or if you're a person like me, I've been holding up that mirror and I've painted on this really ugly reflection for years and years and years. And actually what I've started to do now is to peel off those layers and see what's really underneath. And what's really underneath is nowhere near as ugly as I've been telling myself it is. You may notice, if you're a person who pays attention to language, I'm reluctant to say something super positive about it. So that's still something that I'm working on. You may have noticed I've not said the reflection underneath is beautiful. This is something that I'm still working on as a person, to be able to say that about myself. But I can say it's not the reflection that I thought it was, and that I am much happier with what I really see. But this is why people don't want to do this work. They don't want to do it. They've told themselves the same story for years. For some people, it will be that they've told themselves some really great things about the way that they are. For other people, it will be that they've told themselves some really negative things. And we've talked about our reticular activating system before. This is the system that then helps to build our life in line with these things that we've already decided. So it filters out all the things that don't fit with this theory that we've made around ourselves and our lives and the way that the world is. And to start to undo that can be really tricky. It can be really tricky. It is a process and you have to do the work around it.
Yeah, the work. And this is the inner work that if you follow coaches on social media or what have you, and you see people saying, I did the inner work and now here I am. This is the work. This is the work, isn't it, Becky, that is talking about. I want to ask you a question, Becky, that if you can't admit yet that the image that you see now in the mirror is beautiful, can you admit that the process is beautiful?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. 100%. That wasn't as an uncomfortable a question as I was expecting when you started that one, Faye. I thought, hang on a minute. I didn't sign up to be coached on this episode of the podcast, Becky. What are you doing to me? No, absolutely. You are absolutely right. The process is beautiful, and it can be a bit emotional. I'm not the most emotional of gals. Anyone who knows me will know that is that's me. I have certainly struggled to show my emotions in the past, but I found it quite emotional to actually make those discoveries and go on that journey. But beautiful journey is definitely a great way to describe what happens when you really give yourself over to developing your self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my own experience of this. In May, I think it was May 2020, I started working with a coach who I'd been following for years, and I decided that I needed something and only they could help me. So I went to them and I signed up to their mastermind, and with 8 other ladies who were fantastic. And we had a great time, but she helped me do this inner work. She helped me to strip those layers off, she stripped me bare. And I'm not an overly emotional person either, although I find that as I grow older, I'm a lot more emotional. As a child, I didn't cry at Bambi, and as an adult, I don't think I'd be able to get through the film. I found it an extremely emotional process, so much so that I did cry I would sit there in tears in our sessions, and then I'd laugh and say, I don't know why I'm crying. But actually, this work does strip you right down, and it does evoke all of those emotions, because it's about you. And we have built our defenses over the years. We've put our shields around us. We've cocooned ourselves, if you like. And it is about taking off those layers. But it is a really beautiful process. And what emerges from the cocoon is the butterfly. And, we will emerge as butterflies, but we have to keep doing this work. This isn't something that we just do once. This is something that we can learn to do for ourselves. We can coach ourselves. We can ask ourselves the question. One of the things that always comes up for me is, and it's quite funny, I have a business degree. I have worked with businesses for many, many years. I am a qualified business advisor. I'm a business advisor by profession. And yet running my own business, I question everything, probably because of that, probably because I've got the knowledge and I'm like, how am I applying this? So I've been, throughout having my own business, I've been seeking help from experts to get me to the place where I want to go. And it's not that I do have the knowledge, and what I've come to realize is that I don't need it, because I've got the knowledge. Yes, it's always good to learn from other people. It's good to see how other people do things. You can always learn from others, but actually the way that I want to do it is right for me. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned. The way that I want to and need to do things is right for me. I'd say that to my clients, that the way that they're doing it is right for them. And I've learned that the way I need to do things is right for me. It can be hard, and we need to, there can be days when I'm sitting there thinking, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to do this, that, and the other. And then I work with a coach still. I meet with my coach every Friday, and I've normally coached myself around the problem by the time I get to my session with my coach on a Friday, and I've normally come to a conclusion that's right for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So when we then start putting this then into this leadership context, why is it important to develop your self-awareness as a leader? And one of the biggest things for me is because it really helps you understand what you're really bringing to that role. What are you bringing to that role? And what are you not bringing to that role? Once you've held up that mirror and you've looked at it, you've peeled off all those layers, you're looking at that true reflection. What are you not bringing to that role that you need to be? Because for me, I said it at the start, self-awareness is the foundation for me. And it opens the door then to self-regulation and to making change. If you want to make real, meaningful, impactful change, you've got to start with where you are now, not where you think you are, where you really are, and then make the change from there. And the self-regulation is so important because it's around regulating your emotions, your actions, your feelings, your behaviour in appropriate situations, and making it appropriate for the environment that you are in, and also how you then deal with other people. Once you start to learn more about yourself, one of the biggest changes for me is then how it affects your relationships with other people, because you realize the things that, let's say, wound you up about someone before were all because what they said sparked an insecurity in you, or sparked a jealousy in you, or something along those lines. It's triggered you in some way. And that actually maybe, now, no, I will say it, maybe there's nothing wrong with that person. Now, maybe there is something wrong with that person. Maybe they need to do their own self-awareness work. I get that. But we can change how we respond to those people once we understand why we are responding to those people in that way.
Yeah, I think it's really important to say that it's okay to have those feelings. It's all right to feel them.
Yeah.
It's not that we shouldn't feel them. It's okay to feel how you want to feel about somebody, but understanding why is important. And then you can choose how you respond.
It opens up that power. So it really, by giving yourself the gift of self-awareness, you are giving yourself so much power, because that is the point from which you can start to make conscious decisions about the way that you respond, the way that you want to be. And I think that's something that's really important to remember or to take into consideration when we're looking at self-awareness. I think that people often, when they start to think about self-awareness, they'll look at their feelings, they'll look at their behaviours, they'll look at, the way that they act. What they forget is to tune into the physical element. What's happening somatically? What is happening in your body? I'm physically holding my hand up here. That's me. I really forget to listen to what my body is telling me is really going on and how I'm feeling about something and the effect that different situations are having on me. Listen to your body as well as what's in your head.
Quite often, if we're out of tune with something, out of alignment with something, I get a feeling in my throat going down sort of my breastbone. And that instantly tells me, regardless of what else is going on in my body, because I'm not an expert in somatics, but when I get a feeling, it's like a blockage here in my low down in my throat. When we recognize those feelings that we get, we can actually focus on them and say, oh, how can I reduce this feeling? And that is a really simple one. Physically, you can be affected by what's going on in your life by having physical ailments that you'll go to the doctor to seek help for. But actually, it can be as a result of things that are going on in your life. But when we're more aware of how we react to certain situations and how we take on board other people's stresses and things as well, then we can be aware of that. And we can ask ourselves the question, is this real for me, or is this as a result of something else that's going on? It's
absolutely. I think it's a really powerful thing to tune in with what is going on in your body. So when it comes to developing self-awareness, there's lots of different ways that you can start there. Now, I'm not just saying this because we are coaches, but for me, there has been no bigger impact in developing my self-awareness than being coached. So if that is an option that is available to you, grab that with both hands. If coaching is not for you, or if it's not available to you, other things that you can do. There's lots of tests that you can do online around discovering what your strengths are, or if you check out our episode on values, about discovering your values and starting to uncover those kind of things that are really at the core of you and at the heart of you. Look for something that's reputable. There's for strength, there's things like the Gallup test or High Five Strengths Finder that are both really, really good ones. They're ones that we use with clients. Things like personality profiling. There's lots of different ones out there. I know both Faye and I are DISC practitioners, but there's lots of different ones. You may have heard of things like Myers-Briggs, or the 16 types, which is, again, very, very similar to the Myers-Briggs one. There's a lot of them out there that you can do. if you're not into tests, journaling, spending some time actually reflecting on your day. Meditation is great. Meditation's not something that I'm into personally. It's not something I practice, but I do know that it is great for some people for when it comes to developing their self-awareness. Faye, do you have any others to throw in there for how people can start to develop their self-awareness?
I think you've covered it. But it is that reflection on you. It's building the reflection muscle, I'm going to say. This isn't something that you do once. This isn't something that you think, oh, I'm going to sit down and have a quick reflection. Yes, that's great. But build it in. Start reflecting. I think I said in the episode on reflection that now that I've built it in, I reflect on everything. It's not always great.
It's there.
But I do. So when I decide something for myself, and it's important that I reflect on everything, right? So what anybody said, or, that's not necessarily healthy, but it is healthy to reflect on you, your thoughts, what's going on for you in your life. If somebody asks something of you and you wanted to say no, but you said yes, I don't know, can you do something for me? And you really think, no, I don't want to do that, but you say yes. Just ask yourself, what was it that made you say yes? Why didn't you say no? What stopped you from saying no? And it's just little things like that. And you might not have said no because you might not have wanted to hurt that person's feelings, or you might not have wanted to say yes because this thing's going to put you out, but you said yes anyway. So what stopped you from saying to that person, well, I can help you, but actually that's going to mean X, Y, and Z. Is there anybody else that can help? Coming to an alternative solution. But just have that reflect back. I'm not very good at journaling, so I don't journal. I don't reflect and write down, but I reflect in my head, and that's all right for me. But I know for some people, they love to write, and getting those words out is really cathartic. And to reflect back on their journals as well. A lot of people do that. So, yeah, and what I would like to say about the coaching, Becky and I are coaches, and I would agree with Becky that for me, the best way of developing my own self-awareness was through coaching. It was how I did it. And if you are interested in talking to Becky and I about coaching with us, then our details are just in the show notes. So please drop us an email. We'd be delighted to talk to you. We're not salesy people on our calls. We'll be really, really happy to talk to you and see what you need and talk to you about how you can get that. So don't be afraid to do that.
And as a final, for wrapping up here, when you start to look at this self-awareness and when you realize those things that you've told yourself so far, and you've held that mirror up and you've realized that maybe the reflection that's in there is a bit skewed, and it's the things that you've said to yourself for all this time they're not quite right. Be really kind to yourself here, and remember that the things that you've told yourself, they've got you where you are. Okay, so this in transactional analysis, which is one of my other major passion in life alongside coaching, we call this our life script. It's our life script that develops with all these thoughts. Now, your script has done a really good job so far because it's got you to where you are. So show it some respect. Not everything is something that needs to be fixed. It can be changed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's broken. So when you're holding up that mirror, and if you do realize, yep, my self-awareness and where I thought I was is off, don't use that as a rod to beat yourself up with. Be kind to yourself, because that was your brain's way of making sure that you were safe in the world. And if you're still here, then you are safe in the world. So it's done its job. So be kind to yourself when you are doing this self-awareness work.
Thanks, Becky. That's definitely a very powerful note to end on. Absolutely agree.
Thank you for listening to Meet Me on the M53. If you'd like to know more, you can see Becky at questforest.co.uk and Faye at fayeblakey.com.
Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and thank you to Wahoo Media for our production. We'll see you next time on the M53.
Safe travels.